Hi everyone, my name is Zay and welcome to Witty Reads. So for today's video, I'm going to be talking about the books that I've loved this year. I'm excited to talk about them. I have some real gems. So before we talk about that though, I do just kind of want to talk about my reading year so far, and then we'll talk about the books. So feel free to skip if you want. It's been a pretty good reading year. I definitely have less 5 stars, and I am giving 6-star ratings this year than usual. So that is definitely different. I have a good amount of highly rated books that I, just kind of wanted to zone in on here. But I will say I have experienced a lot of book slumps. I don't think I'm alone in that, but I've had a lot of book slumps, which has been really annoying to deal with. But I have been able to get out of them, and I've still been reading consistently, which is good. But overall, it's been a decent reading year. I don't think it's been my best. The books that are my favorites are some of my favorites of all time. Just some of the best books I've read this year. So I definitely have found some really good book favorites of the year. I have to talk about is Keeping 13, and this is a duet, first 2 books in the Boys of Tommen series. So I read 13 last year, and I really did enjoy it. However, I was not in the right headspace, I think, to read this book. This is a really heavy book, and I just don't think I was quite ready for it at the time, but I did really enjoy it. So I picked up Keeping 13 in January. I do think that the stars aligned when I read this book. I think that I was in the mood for it. I think I needed a book like this. We're following Johnny and Shannon. So Johnny is a rugby player. He's an athlete. Shannon has transferred to this school because she has experienced brutal bullying. She has a very just awful home life. Her father is abusive mentally and physically. It's on page, very graphic. Going through that at home, and she helps take care of her siblings. With me and Shannon end up developing a friendship, and they fall in love, but it's very complicated. They can't be together. It's very heartbreaking. Gosh, she is such a fantastic writer, storyteller. I absolutely love this book. This is what you would call an epic romance. You just go through the ringer with them. We really, really do. We have a lot of wonderful tropes in this. One of my favorites is found family. I really enjoy the characters. The side characters kind of give us some that comedic relief that we need, because this is a very heavy series, and Johnny and Shannon's story is very heavy. Johnny is the ultimate book boyfriend. He is touch her and you die. He's very protective of Shannon. I really enjoyed their development, their story development. I cried. I also laughed. I just went through so many things with the characters, and I will just simply never forget them. Walsh is one of my favorite authors. I think she did a fantastic job with this series, and I think she handled the very difficult topics with a lot of care. So next we have The Right Move by Liz Tom Ford. I know, no one's ever heard of this book. Okay, it's all everyone's been talking about all year, and I completely understand. Liz Tom Ford is a new to me author. I read Mile High this year too, and up until I read this one, that was on my list. But this one, The Right Move, Ryan Shea. Liz Tom Ford has written The Perfect Man. The Perfect Man. This book is one of my favorite books of all time, not just of the year. I have fallen so deeply in love with Liz Tom Ford's writing. I just think she's one of the best contemporary romance authors. Following Indy and Ryan. So Indy is best friends with Ryan's sister from the first book. She just found out that her boyfriend cheated on her of many years. They've been dating for a long time. She can't afford to get an apartment by herself. So Stevie helps her out. She talks her brother Ryan Shea into letting Indy stay with him. Now, is a professional basketball player. Some may say grumpy. Um, and he definitely is not happy about this arrangement, like at all. Him and Indy are complete opposites. We kind of have like a grumpy sunshine kind of situation. I love their dynamic. Like, I just think that they both have what the other person needs. I feel like Liz Tomford does a really good job of balancing out like these characters really well. Like, you can just understand why these two are meant to be together. Like, they're soulmates. What I also think Liz Tomford does so well is she builds tension so well. Every single moment that we got with Indy and Ryan, I just held on to it. There was definitely amazing chemistry, and the banter is chef's kiss. It's so good. But Ryan is the leader of his team now, and his coach is not very sold on Ryan Shea taking that position, because Ryan is a loner. He really is, his whole life is basketball. He doesn't really have a life outside of it. He doesn't really, hang out with the team or anything. He's just focused on the game. And his coach is concerned. He doesn't really think that he's the right person to lead the team. They're really hoping to win the championship this year, much more than just Ryan Shea, the basketball player. And him and Indy end up fake dating. And also, Indy also needs a date to one of her friends' weddings because her ex is going to be there. So they end up helping each other out. So they spend a lot more time with each other other than just being roommates, with the fake dating aspect in there as well. I just really loved these two. I really liked their relationship and their journey. It was very beautiful. It was heartbreaking. It was hilarious. And we have Out on a Limb by Hannah Bottom Young. So I must say that I am such a fan of Hannah's work. I read her for the first time last year. Shout out to Caitlin from the Love Librarian. She was like, you gotta read Hannah. I think you really like her books. And I am such a fan of her. But honestly, this book, it's one of the best books that I've read this year. But it might be, I think it is one of the best romances that I've ever read. This is not very angsty. I liked how realistic it was, how relatable it was. Hannah put her whole heart into this book, and I think it really, really showed. Win and Bo meet at a Halloween party, and they're both dressed up in hilarious costumes that kind of highlight both of their limb differences. But these two immediately hit it off, just have such great banter, and they have this really great already chemistry of having a one-night stand. And I must say, I am not the biggest fan of one-night stands. I find that I really like the connection to be built on something more than just like lust. They already feel so safe with each other. I thought it was such a beautiful scene, beautiful and special to read. I don't think I've ever read such a sensual but beautiful one-night stand scene. Their connection was already so much deeper than just lust. So they have a really great night together, and they go their separate ways. But Wen finds out that she's pregnant. But Bo is immediately like, hey, I want to be involved. I will do whatever you need me to do, but I really want to be involved in our baby's life. To stay with him. And it's also a great way for them to get to know each other, as they're obviously going to be co-parenting together. They pretty much decide that they are just going to be friends because they don't really want to mess anything up. They get along fairly well. They don't want to kind of mess up this really great thing that they have going by throwing in, intimacy or a relationship and romance. So they just decide to be friends. Longing in this book, they both want each other so bad, but they're just really scared to mess up their dynamic that they have, because the stakes are so high. What if it just goes so wrong before the baby even gets here, and they're stuck with each other for 18 years, for the rest of their lives? So I totally understood why these two were trying to fight their feelings that they had for each other. Loved watching their relationship just develop so seamlessly from a friendship and to a level of respect. I'm so happy that people are loving this book so much, and it is definitely going to be on my favorites list, top 3 favorite of the year. I have Wrecked by Lauren Asher. So I must admit, this one I was surprised that I loved it so much. So before this one, I read The Fine Print by Lauren Asher and I liked it, but I didn't really love it. But I do know that I have a couple friends that really like Wrecked, and I know it has really great mental health representation, so I was excited to read it. But honestly, I'm just blown away by how much I enjoyed this, how emotional the story was. The audiobook is absolutely fantastic, narrated so well. This is going to be one of my, definitely one of my favorite audiobooks that I've read. It really, I think, elevated the story and the overall reading experience. So in this story, we're following Elena and Jax. Jax is a raiser, and he is, what would you say, a PR nightmare. He's really giving his team a really hard time. And he's just doing everything that you would expect, right? The stereotypical party, drinking. Elena is brought in to help repair his image. You know, that we have this enemies to lovers kind of vibe. Jax makes it quite hard for Elena to do her job at the very beginning, but Elena is such a strong character doing this for a reason. She really needs this job, really needs this opportunity. Both Jax and Elena have a lot of trauma. Jax is more recent trauma, Elena's is more past trauma, and I really do like how they kind of were able to help each other navigate through that. Great anxiety representation with Jax in here. Really enjoyed this story a lot, and I'm so happy that I read it. So the next book is The 7-Year Slip. I read The Dead Romantics last year. Loved it. I really did enjoy it. I think I ended up giving it like 4 stars. I think to love this book, but honestly, not this much. This book is so good. I don't even want to tell too much about it. We have our heroine, Clementine. Her has just passed away. She's really having a hard time with this. She's staying in her aunt's apartment, so she's moving in. She moves in, and there's a guy in her apartment, and of course she freaks out, and he's like, hey, you know, your aunt's, you know, letting me stay here. And she's like, I don't know who you are, but you need to leave. But then she kind of starts looking around the apartment and she's noticing things. We find out that when Clementine is in her apartment, she's in the past, and our mysterious hero is in there as well. But when she leaves the apartment, she's back in present time, and he is not there anymore. Present time, we're 7 years ahead, and then we're in the apartment. She's yet in the past. So I just loved that concept. I thought it was so interesting. This story is much more than a romance. You know, Clementine is really going through it. You know, there's a trigger warning in here for suicide, and I think it's important to give that trigger warning. I think that the conversations around grief and about grief were done so well. This book has the sweetest hero, really swoony romance, and we've got this time traveling magic realism element that really added so much to the story that I loved so much. Next book is Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. This lived up to all my expectations. Cora and Dean. Dean is dating Cora's sister. They're engaged, and these two are kidnapped by a disgusting serial killer. Just unimaginable things happen, and they are able to escape, but that's really just the beginning of their story. You know, we really get to dive more into the effects of what they went through, the trauma. And I really like how the author handled those difficult scenes, the very dark scenes at the beginning of the book. I really like how we didn't stay in the darkness too long. I like that we didn't really focus and get into graphic. We do get into graphic detail, but I just like how we really get to see the effects of what happened to them. And we got to see them work through it together, and the way that their family members and loved ones responded to it and people responded to it. All of it, the trauma, the PTSD, all of it was, I just feel, was so well written. Such a beautiful story, one that I won't ever forget. Dean and Cora's story will stay with me for a long time. I'm excited for Tabitha's story. If you have the new edition that came out with Bloom, we do get in a bonus chapter, and Tabitha story, which is coming out in October, I believe. I am so excited for it. It is going to be so good, and I cannot wait to read it. So I just really love this. This was so special. I know I'm like the last person to read it, but I'm glad that I read it when I did. I was just ready for it. It's Something Wild and Beautiful by Anita Kelly. So this book was not on my radar, but I've seen a few people talk about it, and I was so excited to, I wanted to see and give it a try. And this is also a new to me author, and I just must say that I really loved this story. I really enjoy Anita Kelly's writing. This was very emotional, very beautiful. Alexi has just come out to his family, and his parents have rejected him. And, he's also very religious, and, everything that he's ever known has rejected him. And he's really having a hard time with this, accepting this and accepting himself. We have Ben, who has been out for a long time. He has a very supportive family, and these two end up hiking the PCT together, but they end up, kind of doing it together, and they really help each other, support each other. It's much deeper than just hiking, but it is this really great goal that they're working towards, but they work towards it together, and they fall in love in the process, enjoy their journeys, and heal together. Ben was so patient with Alexi, someone who's been out, is out, already living their truth, he had so much patience and understanding with Alexi, which is what he needed. He needed somebody who really accepted him, really helped each other unpack their trauma, supported each other, and I just think they discovered more about themselves, and of course fell in love. And I was just blown away by Anita Kelly's writing. I am a big fan, and I am just so excited to see what's next. The next book is Only for the Week by Natasha Bishop. Follows Janelle, who is the maid of honor in her sister's wedding. Groom so happens to be Janelle's ex-boyfriend. So her sister is getting married to her ex-boyfriend, which Janelle is completely fine with. She's happy for her sister and happy for her ex. But the best man, Rome, always been interested in Janelle pretty much since the moment they met, but she was dating his best friend, so he respectively kept a distance. They decide to, hook up for the week. And what I loved so much about this is Janelle is somebody who takes care of people, and her sister treats her very horribly. Definitely does not take care of herself or allow other people to take care of her. So Rome, he protects her, he sticks up for her, he has her back. Seeing her mom and her sister just mistreated her horribly, and I really liked that seeing that character development of her learning to stick up for herself. I really loved Rome. He was just a dream, honestly. So protective, so sweet. I just loved the way that he took care of her and supported her the entire time, the entire book. He was just down for Janelle, and I loved it. She deserved it. It's definitely like an unputdownable read. So romantic and steamy and just fun. I definitely will be reading more from Natasha Bishop. So for the last book on my list, I have Maestro. So shout out to Cheyenne from That Tall Book Girl. I heard her talk about this book, and Cheyenne always has the best recs for angsty, toxic romances. But I am so glad that I read this book because it is so amazing, like epic. If you like a love letter to whiskey, then you've got to read this book. It took me on an emotional journey. Oh my gosh, I was in turmoil for most of the book, to be honest. Following Aurelia and Chadwick, these two meet when they are 13 years old at a audition for the LaGuardia Arts High School, and these two are both musicians. They immediately become friends. This friendship that they have develops into a romance. Start this journey that spans many years. We really go through all these different times and moments with our characters. They go through so much in this book. It's one of those books that hurts so good, and you won't be able to put it down. Like, it is just all consuming, full of longing and just secrets and just epicness. I mean, this is just a soulmate level love. I was really in this with them the entire time. Like, I was experiencing their hurt and their pain, their happiness, their longing, their pining. I just felt like I was right there with them the entire time. Those are some of my favorite books that I've read so far this year. I do have more that I could have talked about, but I just kind of wanted to zone in on these because these are like my top ones so far this year. I do have a lot more books that I want to read that I have not read yet, so I'm curious to see how my end of the year list will look. But these are just such good books that I really enjoyed and I wanted to talk to you all about today. So thank you all so much for watching. Let me know some of your favorite books that you've read this year. How has your reading year gone so far? Thank you all so much for watching today's video. I will see you all very soon.